Welcome you guys to Testkube, Getting Started Guide. I'm Bruno. I'm the product manager for Testkube, and we are here today to talk with you about how to install Testkube, how to basically do the initial setup. With me, it's Jacek and Vlad. Why don't you introduce yourself, guys?
Hello, I'm Jacek. I'm the tech lead in Testkube. Here is also Vlad.
Yeah, thanks to Jacek. I am Vlad. I'm backend software engineer in Testkube, and I'm happy developing this framework. Thank you.
Awesome. So let's start with first, what is Testkube? So Testkube is a Kubernetes native testing framework made for testers and developers. And it's when you talk about native testing, is in a way that you can adopt Kubernetes constructs, namely test CRDs to add your tests to the cluster. So mainly these tools that you see here, like Cypress, Postman, CLI, and Key6, they can integrate with Kubernetes, but they are not made to be Kubernetes native. They are not built with just Kubernetes in mind. They are more generic in that sense. So what Testkube really achieves with this is that you can create CRDs and do these integrations with those tools that we are going to show you today, so that then you can really consider your tests part of your cluster. The next thing you can use Testkube for is that you can decouple testing from your CI/CD. If you have a lot of integration tests and do different kinds of tests with different testing tools, you'll see that your pipelines will be very big. In the left diagram, you can see that you can build, you can then deploy. And if you want to do different kinds of API tests or UI tests, or maybe even load tests, you'll add them to your pipeline and they run against your application. But as you scale and want to add more tests, change tools, these can get complex and you'll have a lot of work to do on your CI/CD. Whereas if you integrate Testkube with your cluster, you can just have Testkube plugin on your CI/CD that will then trigger the tests. And the tests, because they are part of the cluster, you can change them very easily. You can add more testing tools. You can just change things around, and the effort to do so will be very minimal. And after you run all of these tests with these tools, you can use our UI. So you can see all your tests. You can see all their executions. If they pass, if they fail, you can see the log outputs. You can, because we also have a CLI, which we are going to show you. You can also have some helpers on the UI that you can copy, but more on that in a bit. So what you are going to learn today. So Jacek is going to go with us through the flow of installing the CLI, and then he's going to create and run a few tests for us. So
yeah, thank you.
Take it away, Jacek.
Thanks. All right. So to install Testkube, we need to use some installers or binaries. Yeah, we want Testkube kubectl plugin to be on our machine. I'm on Mac, so I can use Brew for this. Brew install Testkube. Install Testkube. Testkube is built against Brew. If you are on Linux or on Windows machine, you can use other installers like Chocolatey or apt-get on Ubuntu, like Linux machines. Yeah, my Testkube is installed now. I can try to run it, kubectl Testkube. It's installed as kubectl plugin. Okay, we can check what version of Testkube we have, and we see that client version is 1.2.5, but we don't have server version yet. Yeah, so our cluster components are not installed. So let's go and install our cluster components. It will take a little bit. Testkube is installing now our JetStack Cert Manager. after the whole process of installation, cluster components should be in place.
Yeah, we're installing it from Helm chart. So yeah, just to be aware that we have special Helm charts for Testkube, and this CLI tool just installed from the Helm repository.
Yeah, we can see that Service Manager is getting up here. After Service Manager will be ready, Testkube will start installing Testkube Helm charts. We will see also in a bit what Testkube components are in the cluster. So for now, we are seeing pods from Cert Manager, which is used for managing SSL certificates inside of our cluster. And now we are seeing that Testkube is installed. Yeah, so we have our Testkube components. Like API server is the main orchestrator of everything. Yeah, it's scheduling new test jobs. Dashboard is our UI. Minio is our storage, is S3-like storage, open source one. MongoDB is our data store, and operator is about managing our CRDs in cluster. Okay, it looks like Testkube is starting. API server is running. It's waiting for Minio. We can get back to Testkube command, and we can call version again. And now we can see that server version is also there after the process of installation of cluster components. Because Testkube is installed on empty cluster, we need some service to test. I will show you how it was built here. So our service is usual Go application, which is calling some API in the backend. To put it into Kubernetes cluster, we need Docker file. Is two-phase build Docker file, which we are building in first step, and we are putting everything in the small container in the second step. Everything needs to be built and pushed into some registry. And next, we need to manage our manifest files. Yeah, so we are creating services namespace, and we will put deployment into this namespace. We named this as Chuck jokes because it's downloading random Chuck Norris-based jokes from Chuck Norris.io API, and it's getting joke as text and return it in a particular endpoint. We need also service to get all networking in place in cluster. So to put everything into cluster, we need first to build it. I have prepared 2 commands to build and push. We can build this Docker container. After Docker build will be successful, it will be pushed into Docker Hub registry. We are seeing that. Kubernetes cluster need to be aware of this image. Yeah, so it needs to be able to download it from whatever repository you put there. Yeah, so if you have any authorization behind, you need to configure your Kubernetes cluster to be able to get these images. Okay, we have Docker image in place. Now we can apply our manifests files. So I will kubectl apply and put this manifest with the deployment namespace and service. I will apply it, and everything, each of those will be created. So I can check now what pods are in our Testkube namespace and what pods are in our services namespace. I can see that we have 3 replicas of our Chuck jokes service. We can also check if it's working. I create new pod, simply curl into Chuck jokes services namespace 808081 port/joke. It should work like this. Yeah, and we can see that our service is responding with some text. So the question is how to test it in Kubernetes cluster, because when I close it, I can't access it somehow. Yeah, so I need to manually port forward this service or use some telepresence-like software. So it's quite cumbersome to get into testing.
Or create ingress and expose endpoints for the external world.
Exactly. So it's even more complicated, because you need to set up a DNS on your domains and set up everything. So
think about security.
Exactly. Probably your ops don't allow you to do this. So it's quite hard and cumbersome to test your services easily in Kubernetes clusters. Testkube will help with that. Let's prepare some tests. We have some simple API. We can create tests in Postman. Let's open it. I prepared Chuck jokes test in Postman. Postman is organized around collections. We can create collection. My collection is named Chuck jokes. I simply created by doing create new collection action. I have my Chuck jokes, and I added a single request to this. My request has tests inside. I created new assertion that response should include Chuck, because all jokes should be about Chuck Norris. Additionally, I put environment variable API URI if I need to change it someday. For example, I can run this test against my local instance of this service, and when I put it into cluster, I simply configure my test to use my cluster-based API URI. So internal one. Okay, so we have this. I need to export it. Postman allow you to export your collection, export and save it somehow. Okay, now I can get back to my terminal, and it's time to create a test. We are using create command, create test with given file of saved test, Chuck jokes, Postman collection, and I will name it Chuck jokes Postman. I create, we have this test. Now I can see that Testkube get test kubectl Testkube get test, and we can see that test exists in cluster. We can also check how CRD looks like. Get tests in namespace Testkube, and let's write them as YAML. So it will be list of all possible tests. We can see that our test is some resource with content of whole Postman collection saved as JSON. So the state is inside cluster in this example. Okay, we have our first test. We can run it. With run test command, and we need our test name. So it's Chuck jokes Postman. Jokes Postman. And we can also follow for changes, log our terminal like in Kubernetes kubectl. So we are waiting now for scheduling everything by our APIs. When test will be completed, we'll see that what result there is. So we can see that our assertion is here, and we was calling Chuck jokes service. This address is valid only in internal Testkube services, because we created internal Kubernetes service, which we can access only inside cluster. So Kubernetes has completed whole hard work for us here. Okay, so now we have first Postman test and execution. We can get back to our execution. Kubectl Testkube get executions, and we can see that we have some execution of Chuck jokes Postman, which is Postman Collection, and last status was passed. We can get execution details. We can see that this test is successful. It took 11 seconds and completed with success. We have some output from Postman, so we can get back to it and check for details. Okay, it was the first part of creating our tests with using of kubectl command, but it's not everything. We have also really nice UI. We can open it with kubectl testkube dashboard command, and it should open automatically port forwarded testkube UI in your browser. We can see that browser is open and we have test suites which are empty for now. We have tests, and we have our Chuck jokes Postman test, which we created several minutes ago. So, and we see that we ran it once. It took 11 seconds. We have some CLI commands helpers, and we can see what definition it has. So it's Postman Collection JSON export. We can run it from here too. We have run button. So when we run it, we can see that it's in progress, and we need to wait a little bit for test to complete. Yeah, you can see that it's passed, and it took 5 seconds this time because probably some caches has effect, and everything started to be faster and not faster. Yeah, it was the Postman example in UI and kubectl plugin. Tested our Chuck jokes API with some kind of integration test, but let's assume that we also want to test with some performance testing suite. We can create new tests. Let's do this now with our UI. So we can add test. Let's name it Chuck jokes K6. Let's use K6 executor, and let's pass string to it. I have somewhere simple K6 test. K6 test is JavaScript based test. We need to create our JavaScript test file. Here we simply set our URI of our Chuck jokes service, and we are testing if each of response body again includes Chuck word. Yeah. Okay. So let's copy this and paste it into Testkube. And this time let's simply save and run, maybe. It's running. Oh, it took 6 seconds, and we can check our K6 test output. You can see that joke should be about Chuck is okay, 100% okay. Of course, it should be configured with a little bit more virtual users, and cluster should be a little bit sweat after this test, but for purpose of this video, we created this simple one here to not kill our Kubernetes. Okay. We want to orchestrate those all testing frameworks together a little bit. So here are test suites. They will help us a little bit. I will get back to my terminal. And first of all, I prepared very simple test suite. So my suite JSON file is here. It's about Testkube test to test our Chuck jokes, Postman, and K6. I will create it now. Create test suite. Okay. So instead of creating test, we will create test suite with some name and from some file. Let's create one. We can see now that our test suits here, and we can run it for the first time. Let's run it. We can check what is the progress of our test suite. Yeah, first one is completed. We added also some waiting step, and second one, K6 is also completed. Yeah, whole test took 10 seconds, and we can go and check details of those executions. Yeah. So I think it was more or less basics of Testkube. We will be preparing a lot more of those. Yeah, so
looking good. Could you show the CRDs for the tests and the test suites, like from the cluster?
Yeah, sure. I was showing one CRD for tests, but let's go again for this. Cube cut tests in Testkube namespace. Now we should have two. Yeah, first one is K6, second is Postman. Yeah. So let's look at K6 CRD. And output YAML, of course. It will be a little bit better. Let's make it a little bigger. Yeah, we can see that it's in our test API, kind of test. It has some metadata like name and etc. and namespace and specification. So we have content with some data. We have type is string, as we created it from string, and type is KSX script. We can easily create our own executors, which will have custom types and which will run custom workloads on top of those types. Yeah, so it's quite easy in Testkube to create your own. Second kind of custom resources are test suites. Okay, let's check what test suite we have. Here is test 2S. Okay, test suites. We have Chuck jokes. So let's check Chuck jokes and let's look at its YAML. Yeah, we can see that we have a resource of kind test suite, which have specification, which steps. First one is execute step, delay step, and execute step. Yeah, so we are executing some Testkube tests. First one is Chuck jokes Postman. We are waiting 1 second between them, and we are executing second K6 test. So we can put a lot of different tests here and try to orchestrate. I think we have this idea to put also some graphs in the future. Yeah, for now it's a sequence, but probably in some period in time in future there will be some graph of dependencies. Yeah, and how those tests will be run in parallel executions, and they will get back to some synchronous ones, etc., etc. So I think we have really quite a lot of ideas how to improve this. So we also need some feedback from you, and we are really waiting for it. How are you?
That's true. That's very true.
Yeah, I think I'm done for the very basics of Testkube. Yeah. So Bruno, back to you.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. So yeah, as Jacek said, your feedback is very appreciated. If you want to check out our code, you can go to GitHub repository. We are fully open source. If I didn't mention before, MIT license. We also have a Discord channel where you can just, if you have like any hurdle or want to ask any question and give feedback, any type of feedback, just go there. Also follow us on Twitter. We post about all the news related with Testkube and testing in general as well. So stay tuned. Thanks a lot, guys.
See you. Bye. See you.
Bye-bye.